Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we are reviewing the newly released DC animated film, Justice Society World War II.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this movie. It looked really cool according to the trailers, and I was let down.
It has so much squandered potential, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but we'll talk all about it later on this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the comic book movie news that came out last week, including the new Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer, and the news that the Suicide Squad movie has received its MPAA rating.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
So those who have been listening to the recent episodes of this podcast know that we've been talking about Apple Podcast subscriptions, which is letting podcast creators put their show out there at a price.
We predicted that other podcast platforms would follow suit, and the platform with our biggest audience, Spotify, did just that this past week.
Right, they're now letting shows go behind a paywall. So this is a huge opportunity for Jonathan and I to monetize the show. That being said, we don't want to sell the fuck out, and we don't really want to do it. So we're really pushing our Patreon. And as part of that, Jonathan and I have revamped our Patreon perks. And we just want to go over those and make it clear what those are in case you haven't had a chance to visit the Patreon website. Our goal is to get to 100 patrons before the middle of July when the Black Widow movie comes out. If we can hit that goal, then we're going to keep Dynamic Duel free. If we can't meet that goal, if you're on Spotify, Patreon, or Apple Podcasts, you'll still be able to get the show by subscribing. But let's hit that Patreon goal. What are the perks?
So we have 3 different tiers, our lowest one being only $2 per month. And with that, you get monthly blooper reels and other bonus audio content like top 10 lists and film pitches.
Right, currently we have 30 patrons. Once we get to 50, we'll fulfill one of our goals where we start putting out new top 10 audio episodes every month.
Also at that price point, you get to check out duel results from dozens of matchups featuring characters from Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, and other movies, comics, anime, and video games.
Yeah, we run duels on a lot of those characters. You also get access to our Discord server where you can chat with Jonathan, myself, and other fans of the show about movies, comics, news, and more.
And you get to participate in our new monthly movie watch-alongs that will be starting in June.
Yeah, come talk about movies with us as we watch them.
If you miss the theater experience with all the fans around you, this is going to be the next best thing.
After the $2 a month tier, we have a $10 a month tier where you get all the perks that we just previously announced for the lowest tier, but you also get this new bit of merch that Jonathan and I have created, which is a 1.5-inch die-struck iron full color pin every other month.
Yeah, these things are sweet. You actually get 2 pins. It's a set that comes with a Marvel character and a DC character, characters that have been featured in our duel matchups.
Yeah, our first pin set that's going to go out in June will be Red Hood versus Punisher. So both our mid and high tiers will get that set. These are limited edition pins. We only have a small quantity of them. So if you're not part of these tiers and you still want the pins, you can purchase them later. But just know that we won't be producing any more Red Hood and Punisher pins if you miss out.
And we'll be putting up photos of these pins on our social media accounts and our website for you guys to check out. They're awesome. Our final tier is at $18 a month, which is our executive producer tier. Not only do these patrons get to vote in our executive producer polls, helping us decide what the show's content is, they also get credit on the website and at the end of every show, and they also get an executive producer certificate.
Yeah, making it legit. The highest tier also get new pins every month as opposed to every other month with the $10 tier.
Yeah, so the executive producers will be getting a Vision and Martian Manhunter pin in July, along with all of the bonus content perks from the lowest tier.
So to wrap up, $2 a month you get bonus content, $10 a month you get bonus content and a pin every other month, and $18 a month you get executive producer status, a pin set every month, and bonus content.
Trust us, guys, moving forward, whether we end up doing Apple Podcast subscriptions and Spotify subscriptions, Patreon is where you want to be, because not only do you get the show, you get everything else.
So visit patreon.com/dynamicduel and get them perks. But with that massive sales pitch out of the way,
quick to the no prize.
A no prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, which Marvel Phase 4 film are you most looking forward to and why? And this was coming off of the video that Marvel released that was an appeal to returning to the movie theaters that featured a whole bunch of footage from their upcoming projects.
including a first look at the Eternals. We got a few answers. Let's run down our honorable mentions as well as the no prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to CJ Kraft, who said,
I'm most excited to see the Shang-Chi movie. I know they're going to do some really cool effects with the 10 rings, but I really want to see some realistic and gritty martial arts on the big screen. I'd love to see Shang-Chi get beat up a little bit and come back like Daredevil since he's a street-level hero. And to all the Dynamic Duel fans listening out there, guys, come on, let's throw them some bucks on the Patreon. Let's keep this show free. It's the best podcast out there.
Oh, look at that. Peer pressure. Thanks, CJ.
I mean, that's not the only reason we chose this answer. We're also really looking forward to Shang-Chi.
Yeah, and for the same reasons. I really want to see a great martial arts action movie set in the world of superheroes. I feel like it's been a while since we've gotten a great martial arts movie, period.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I love those old kung fu movies with Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and Donnie Yen, and I hope that this movie is made in that same vein.
Yeah, totally. That's what I'm most looking forward to with this film.
Of course, we do know that there are going to be some like sci-fi and mystical aspects to it, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type stuff as well. But
I'm totally fine with that.
I'm fine with that too.
Our next honorable mention goes to Zach Hepburn, who said,
Hey guys, Zach Hepburn here. And I have to say the movie I'm looking forward to the most is definitely Thor Love and Thunder. For one, you get to see Fat Thor again. And, you know, we also get Jane Foster's coming back, and she's going to be Mighty Thor. Guardians of the Galaxy are going to be in that movie, which is going to be amazing. Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher, and Russell Crowe coming as Zeus. I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah, what more do you need? Now, we didn't discuss this when it was announced because Marvel hasn't officially announced that Russell Crowe will be playing Zeus, but Russell Crowe himself did let that slip during a radio interview.
Right.
And that's fantastic news. It looks like we'll be getting more of the Skyfathers within this movie. Since probably Thor is going to take over as the ruler of Asgard, he'll get to meet the other Pantheon deity rulers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't even think about that.
And you toss in like the wackiness of Taika Waititi, similar to what he put in Thor Ragnarok, and I think it's going to be a really fun movie.
Yeah, can't wait.
Our next honorable mention goes to Jace Crump, who said,
Hey guys, this is Jace Crump. The movie I'm most excited for is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because I'm a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan, and I've been waiting a long time for this movie to come out, especially with that whole fiasco with James Gunn and the movie being pushed back. The second movie came out in 2017, so just waiting a long time for that one, and I'm super excited.
If you think about it, so Guardians of the Galaxy is going to come out in 2023, which will be a full 6 years after the last Guardians movie.
And that's a long time.
In comparison, the entire new Spider-Man trilogy is going to come out within 6 years.
They're way past due for another film.
But as Zach Hepburn said, we will be getting to see the Guardians in the Thor Love and Thunder movie, and of course the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, before the new Guardians movie.
We want to give a quick shout out to everyone else who took the time to visit our website and record an answer, including Miggy Madangian and Shane Habizin.
But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Jacob Bell, who said,
Hey, what's up, guys? Jacob Bell here. I'd have to say the Phase 4 film that I'm looking forward to the most is probably Fantastic Four, just because I think that Fantastic Four is obviously super popular in the comics, and a lot of people who may not read a lot of the comics but still really like the movies don't really know how good they are, and I think a really well-made film will show that. So, yeah, Fantastic Four.
Absolutely. I think it's time that the Fantastic Four got some respect. Everybody thinks they suck because all their movies have sucked, but Marvel has the opportunity to set everybody straight with a great Fantastic Four movie.
I've always felt that, like, along with Spider-Man, Fantastic Four is like the most Marvel characters in their stable.
Yeah, well, they were the ones that kind of started off the whole Marvel age. So yeah, I kind of agree. I really hope that we get casting news for that movie before the end of this year. Really excited to see what direction they're going to take the film. Marvel, you should join our Patreon and check out my film pitch that I did for a rebooted Fantastic Four movie set within the MCU.
That was a good pitch. That was a really good pitch.
Thanks. In that pitch, I compared it to the movie Gravity. If you listeners want to hear that pitch that I wrote too, join us on Patreon.
Congrats once again to Jacob Bell for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on in this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week.
And now that that's done,
on to the news. All
right, last week we got our first trailer for the upcoming film Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Now, this movie was supposed to come out in 2020, but it's been moved to September 24th of 2021. Hopefully it keeps that date because we've been waiting for this movie for a while. The first Venom movie came out in 2018. It was essentially a popcorn movie, not extremely well made, but fun to watch nonetheless. And what really struck me about this trailer is that it seems like new director Andy Serkis has kept the same visual and comedic tone of that first film.
Oh yeah, I totally noticed that right out the gate. I thought it was the same director for a second. But no, Andy Serkis is just a competent enough director to maintain continuity and tone.
The trailer starts off with Venom singing and cooking Eddie Brock breakfast, because all Venom thinks about is food. It's a very caricature-ish take on the Venom character, but one that's in keeping with the previous depiction of him. It's funny.
It's hilarious.
I laughed.
The exploding ketchup, classic.
I like how he called it ketchup.
Yummy.
It looks like Eddie Brock is getting postcards written by Cletus Cassidy from prison, and the two are corresponding, because as we saw in the last film, Eddie Brock is the only one that Cletus Cassidy wants to give a story to, as well as potentially the locations of previous murder victims. We get a lot of dialogue from Cletus Cassidy, and he's essentially asking Eddie, like, how does he feel about all the people he can't save? Which is an interesting question when posed to a superhero. Like, I always get down on myself, like, about the things that I'm not able to accomplish. So I can't imagine the pressure that being a superhero would put on someone like me. We're not quite sure if Eddie has that same pressure, and we see that apply to Eddie's relationships, like with Michelle Williams and Wang character. There's an interesting shot in this trailer where we see a detective reading the Daily Bugle newspaper that has the same logo as the Daily Bugle from the Sam Raimi films, with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's led to a lot of conjecture that this Venom series actually takes place in the Sam Raimi universe.
What? But we already had Venom in that series.
That's true, with Topher Grace, who played Eddie Brock. I don't know if they're just retconning that aspect. It is possible that this film series actually takes place in the Andrew Garfield universe, but I'm sure that'll all get sorted out once we see Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Wow, that's interesting.
We see Cletus Cassidy strapped down for lethal injection for all of his murders, and it appears that by this point, he already has acquired the Carnage symbiote. And it incredibly stops the lethal injection chemicals from entering his bloodstream through his intravenous tube. The Carnage symbiote protected him from dying, which I kind of didn't want to know that spoiler, but it was a nice, subtle, surprising introduction to Carnage.
Yeah, it looks like the symbiote just like tears through his skin. It looks really painful. It looks awful.
And when fully manifested, Carnage looks dope. He has so many tentacles, kind of like in the comics, way more than like Riot from the previous movie. Like so many weapons.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be really lethal. He's out there like pulling down helicopters and flinging cars. It looks like Venom has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a huge repeat of the Venom versus Riot fight from the previous movie. It does look like Carnage is Riot on steroids. But to mix things up, we do have Naomi Harris's character who's going to play Shriek, and it looks like she does have her like screaming Sonic Black Canary-ish powers in this movie. So that should make it interesting, considering we know that symbiotes are weak to Sonics. The trailer ends on a gag where the bodega owner, Mrs. Chen, does not have the special chocolate shipment for Venom, and Venom gets pissed off. More humor. The trailer does seem to be divisive among fans. A lot of people who appreciated the first movie see nothing wrong with this trailer. Those people who hated the first movie had a lot to bitch about because it seems like the film doubles down on everything from Venom 1.
Yeah, totally.
The amount of humor and Venom's tone brings us to our question of the week.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much humor do you like with your Venom, and why?
Yeah, and that's 1 being a not funny Venom, and 10 being an extremely hilarious Venom. Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message can be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
Be sure to get your answer in before May 22nd. But moving on to DC news, this past week we learned that the MPAA gave Suicide Squad an R rating. Not surprising, we figured it was going to be rated R, James Gunn said as much, the film even had a red band trailer. What is surprising is the why they gave it a rated R. The Suicide Squad is going to be rated R for strong violence and gore.
Right, check, yeah.
Language throughout.
Makes sense, yeah.
Some sexual references.
Yeah, standard.
Drug use.
Little unexpected, but yeah, makes sense.
And graphic nudity.
What? Now, when you hear that, you probably think, ooh, naked Harley Quinn, but I can almost guarantee you it's going to be male nudity.
I would not be surprised if it was shark male nudity.
James Gunn definitely has the warped kind of mind who would show us King Shark's naughty bits. And I'm trying to think, have we ever received a Marvel or DC film before that had graphic nudity in it?
Well, yeah, in BVS, we saw Ben Affleck's ass.
That's not graphic. Everybody has an ass. We did see boobs in the 2004 Thomas Jane Punisher movie and in the Deadpool movie. But boobs and butts never get classified as graphic. That means we're probably going to see some dong or something else that they would never put in a movie. What's a good euphemism for vagina?
You know what it probably is, actually? It's probably Starro. They're face huggers, essentially. And those things are probably going to look really gross and graphic, just like, like the face huggers did in the Alien franchise.
I don't think it would get classified with a rating for that. I mean, the Aliens movies don't get tagged for graphic nudity.
I don't know.
CGI nudity is kind of questionable. What did Watchmen get rated R for? Because that had CGI nudity.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about Watchmen. That got rated R for strong graphic violence, sexuality, and nudity, and strong language throughout.
Oh, but Watchmen had nudity beyond just Dr. Manhattan.
Right.
So that probably doesn't count.
But even that MPAA rating doesn't say graphic nudity. And it was graphic. All in all, this is just fair warning to everyone seeing the film. What can I say? It's James Gunn. It's probably going to be Weasel.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's more likely going to be Weasel than King Shark, honestly.
Or Starro, yeah. Well, look forward to that if that's your thing. All the furries out there, you got your wish. But I think that does it for this news section. Let's move on to the main event of this episode where we review the new DC animated film, Justice Society World War II. Alright, so Justice Society World War II is DC's latest animated feature film, and the second film in its new animated universe that began with last year's Superman Man of Tomorrow. That film was not great, and our ambivalence towards it is mostly due to its story, right? But in our review of Superman Man of Tomorrow, we did say that it was a decent setup for a new DC animated universe. And let's be honest, Warner Brothers Animation had its work cut out for it after the amazing DC animated movie universe run between Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox and Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. I'd say that universe rivals the MCU in terms of its connectedness and satisfaction.
Yeah, that was a great run of animated films.
So with Justice Society World War II, we officially have a new multi-film animated universe that has quite a number of surprises. The film was released digitally in late April, so you may have seen it already, but if you haven't, fair warning, this is a spoiler review, as all of our reviews are. So if you haven't seen the film yet, just know that its surprises will be ruined for you if you continue listening. Do I recommend you watch this film? I don't, unfortunately. And my reasoning has a lot to do with the story and because of what they decided to do with the whole premise of this film. It would seem perhaps none of what happens in this movie will have any effect on future films within this universe, essentially making the movie pointless.
That's what I thought, yeah, pointless.
Yeah, that's a bad decision. Like, will we ever see this version of Wonder Woman again in future animated films? I don't think so. I guess they could make more films set in this alternate past, alternate reality with these Justice Society characters, but we'll see. I mean, I didn't hate this movie the first time I watched it. I was just confused by it.
Yeah.
And the longer I thought about it and wrote about it, the more I feel like the whole thing squandered its potential.
The first time I saw this movie, I actually fell asleep, which is rare for me. I did start it at midnight, so I, wasn't helping my cause. But upon seeing the movie the second time, I realized that my confusion was not really based off of anything I missed, but based off of the story itself.
Now, when the first trailer for this film was released, you and I speculated that the time travel aspect regarding The Flash was going to mean that this film, in some small way, was going to act as a bridge between Justice League Dark Apocalypse War and this new animated continuity.
Yeah.
It turned out that wasn't the case, at all.
No.
And that was probably a good thing in the long run. That way you could go into this movie fresh. Most people, I think, will still be confused watching this, though, if they're expecting a World War II film.
The opening stinger does feature a pretty intriguing World War II setup. Basically, Steve Trevor proposes that America form a secret American super team to combat the Nazis and their growing collection of mystical artifacts.
I loved that as a setup. It had so much potential.
Yeah.
And I thought the whole movie was going to be the JSA fighting the Nazi occult or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember from the trailer, we saw Black Canary fighting like this dragon-like creature. So I thought the Nazis were going to awaken this like Leviathan.
Or like a giant demon or something.
Exactly. And the JSA were going to fight it. But instead, we got a movie where the JSA are only really fighting the Nazis for like a couple of scenes.
Yeah, it was so disappointing. And also with the opening premise, the team, as Wonder Woman suggests, could even win the war. But right after the opening credits, the film jumps to modern day, where we are introduced to Barry Allen, the Flash, who fights Brainiac alongside Superman, who I didn't even know was going to be in this film.
Yeah.
And just when you get comfortable in the present, the movie switches back to the past. And when things start getting interesting there, we learn this isn't the past, but an alternate Earth. And all of a sudden, instead of fighting Nazis, the Justice Society is fighting Aquaman and his Atlantean army. It's like, what happened?
That took a left turn somewhere. Story zigged when I should have zagged.
Exactly. It's as though they tried to merge 3 or 4 films into one, which in reality is sort of what happened. A lot of the story elements from this film were borrowed from a scrapped Wonder Woman animated series that was in development for a while. I imagine it's hard to take a series and compress it into an hour-and-a-half movie, and you'd think the filmmakers would have figured that out as well.
Going into this, I did think it was going to be a Wonder Woman-centric film, but it was absolutely a Flash movie. He was definitely the central character, the main protagonist.
Right, it's almost like they mismarketed this film. You think it would appeal to Justice Society fans, but it's not exactly a Justice Society film. Wonder Woman gets top billing, but I wouldn't say the film is focused on her. I agree with you, the protagonist was probably Barry Allen. So does that make this a Flash film? I have no idea. It doesn't help things that the 2 main characters, Flash and Wonder Woman, aren't characters that are really associated with the Justice Society.
That's true. The Justice Society themselves are really supporting characters in this story, even though the movie is called Justice Society World War II. I would have loved an animated movie about the JSA. Again, the premise that they set up was brilliant.
Totally brilliant.
They didn't follow through with the magical artifacts.
You know how they say that in a movie or a play, if you show a gun in the first act, it has to go off by the third act?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you show the fucking Spear of Destiny or the Ark of the Covenant in the first act, they also should factor into the movie later on in some way.
Yeah, they were just like Easter eggs or something.
Right?
It's like, oh, look at that, look at that.
I got so excited.
Yeah.
The artifacts in no way played any kind of role later on in the plot, and that was the whole reason President Roosevelt agreed to form the super team. Instead of going toe-to-toe with Hitler and the Spear of Destiny, which would have been so cool, the quote-unquote artifact the society ended up going up against was, what? Aquaman's trident that summoned alternate versions of the trench monsters?
No, they didn't really go after any artifact. They thought Dr. Fate would lead him to one, but he didn't. He led him into a trap.
Yeah, set by the advisor character. Supposedly, according to Wikipedia, the nameless villain that mind controls Aquaman was Psycho Pirate. But if you're unfamiliar with that character from the comics, is a villain who wears a golden mask called the Medusa mask that can manipulate others. Now, considering that Medusa is a Greek myth and both Wonder Woman and Aquaman deal with Greek mythology, I think that would have been the perfect MacGuffin for the Nazis and the Justice Society to race to get.
The Medusa mask?
Yeah, I think that would have been a much cooler mission at the Nazi Castle Fortress than the underwhelming Dr. Fate rescue.
Yeah, that would have been perfect. That's right. And that's why Wonder Woman would have been involved to begin with, because she would have known about the Medusa mask, given that it's a Greek relic. And yeah, the Nazis would have tried to have gotten the Medusa mask. They dropped the ball hard on that.
Damn it, Warner Brothers, hire me. I have good ideas.
So Psycho Pirate uses the Medusa mask in the comics, and he didn't have it here.
No mask to be found. Now, at first, the whole alternate Earth angle bothered me until I watched this a second time and I realized the film was paying homage of sorts to the Flash of Two Worlds storyline. In the comics, after DC's reinvention of the Flash kicked off the Silver Age of comics, it was later established that the original Golden Age Flash still existed, but in another dimension known as Earth 2. The two Flash characters were the first ones to meet from across the multiverse. And with DC really pushing the multiverse concept right now, it's nice that they involved the two Flash characters in their first multiversal story within this animated universe. They didn't explicitly say the Justice Society was Earth 2, but whatever it was, it did raise the stakes somewhat in that the cities could crumble and the heroes could die without it affecting primary continuity. That said, I don't think you needed this film to set up the Justice League in the present timeline, which, unless I'm mistaken, was the whole point of this film.
Yeah, it does seem like the whole premise was for Dr. Fate to send the Flash back in time and to teach him a lesson regarding his personal relationships and setting up the Justice League. I don't think they needed this prompt to set up the Justice League, considering that at the beginning of this film, the Flash was already teaming up with Superman, and gathering a larger group of heroes was the next logical step.
You'd think Brainiac would be a formidable foe enough for the League to assemble.
Exactly. But let's stop bitching about the movie for 1 second, and let's talk about some of the things that we liked. I did think the action was great. I think every single character got a pretty cool action beat.
That's true, yeah.
And the animation was done really well.
Yeah, we praised the animation style of Superman Man of Tomorrow, and that same animation style is carried over here in this film. It's clean, it's sharp, it's pretty fluid, which is great. I really liked how they differentiated between the past and present by muting the colors of the past and using interesting textures and lighting.
Yeah.
It didn't always look good, but most of the time, I thought it did. I think they're really testing the limits of what they can do with this new animation style. I also really liked the music of the film, actually, especially during the opening credits. Actually, those opening credits were just awesome in general.
Yeah, they were done in the style of a World War II, like, newsreel kind of thing.
It reminded me very much of, like, I don't know, Citizen Kane or, like, Casablanca or one of those, like, old Turner Classic movie films.
Yeah.
The voice cast was good, too. There were a ton of characters in this film, probably too many, but let's talk more about them in the character breakdown. Now, Barry Allen / The Flash was voiced by Matthew Bomer, who also does the voice of Negative Man in the live-action Doom Patrol series. He's definitely one of the standouts of the ensemble voice cast, and I thought his performance as Barry Allen was a pretty good fit for the character.
Yeah, when I saw the cast, I was concerned that I would only hear Negative Man in Barry Allen's voice, but that was never really an issue.
I agree. Now, the Flash had a few arcs in the film. His primary goal was to get back to his timeline and world, but thematically, Dr. Fate explicitly said the Flash's whole reason for being sent back in time was to learn a lesson. Namely, the lesson to not take his relationships for granted because, as Steve Trevor states with his dying breaths, tomorrow is not guaranteed. All we have is this moment right now. And that's a powerful lesson, and one that Barry definitely needed because he was hesitant to commit to his girlfriend Iris at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, it's a great lesson, not just for superheroes, but especially them because, they have such a high mortality rate.
Exactly.
But it's just a great lesson for life, No matter how much time you think you have, you and your loved ones aren't guaranteed tomorrow. I think a lot of us learned that lesson the hard way this past year with all the COVID sicknesses and everything like
Absolutely.
that. So
yeah.
The message came at a good time.
Barry did have to travel all the way to the past of another world to another dimension to learn that, though, and I'm still not sure how he even did that. Maybe Dr. Fate caused it, it's not quite clear. I'm also not sure how he figured out how to get back to his time, his dimension.
Well, Jay Garrick, the Flash, just gave him a little push, right?
But when did they figure that out?
Exactly. They never explained how they figured that out. And if they were able to do that this whole time, you think that they would have sent Barry back to his timeline earlier, considering how concerned Jay Garrick was with Barry affecting the timeline.
Right. One great thing about this universe's animation style is the character design, though I'd say the Flash probably had the worst design in this movie. It was his mask. Like, it was freaking all over the place. I don't know if you noticed that. Sometimes his mouth opening in his mask would be as low as his jawline, and other times it was noticeably higher. Sometimes the section over his nose was in the middle of his bridge, and other times it was at the very tip. And when he turned his head to the side, his nose disappeared altogether. It was really distracting.
I didn't notice that specifically, but I was bugged by the weird facial hole in his mask.
Yeah, it kept moving. It's like, stay still. I thought the Flash's coolest action scene in this movie was when they gave him that sort of whole, like, X-Men Days of Future Past, Quicksilver bullet time kind of scene.
Yeah.
Where he was just, like, moving in between bullets in, like, slow motion, not quite punching Nazis in the face, but just, like, creating these forceful wind gusts that would blow them really far back. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely his best action beat, for sure. I like that.
Moving on to Wonder Woman, she was voiced by Stana Katic. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And she did a pretty good Gal Gadot accent, though I'd say Stana sounds even stronger. She nailed it, in my opinion, and I thought she was the best voice actor in this film.
I really hope they keep her as the voice for Wonder Woman in subsequent films in this new universe, even though it's probably going to be a different version.
I kind of wish that this movie was set in the past for that reason and not an alternate Earth.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think people are pretty familiar by now, having seen the Zack Snyder films, that she's essentially an immortal character. She's ageless. She's an ageless Amazon. So she totally could still be alive. It didn't need to be an alternate Earth.
The only element of this movie that made it an alternate Earth was Superman. The fact that he arrived in America a few decades earlier than he did within the main universe. So if you just remove that element, which was not really necessary to the story anyway, this could have been a cool time travel movie.
Yeah, totally. Again, though, DC's trying to push the multiverse. Yeah. Now, Wonder Woman's arc in this film was all about making the world a safer place, free from Nazis, free from war, the kind of place where she and Steve could live happily ever after. She agreed to say yes to Steve's marriage proposal one day when the time was right. She's a tragic character in this film because her goals go unrealized. Steve dies, and she doesn't stop the war, at least not in this film, which sucks because that was part of the initial premise of the film, and it's something Wonder Woman brings up several times. Maybe if they'd established that the society was mostly successful in their mission, and that this whole end battle was like a last-ditch effort by the Nazis, or maybe even revenge against America. But by the end of the film, as far as we know, the Nazis still have their mystic artifacts, and they still even have the Psycho Pirate character.
I know, geez, like, Wonder Woman didn't get any wins in this.
No, 0. Both Wonder Woman and the Flash learn the same lesson in this film about choosing love, though it's Wonder Woman that learns it the hard way because she's the one that loses out on the opportunity for love. Usually Wonder Woman is a figure of inspiration and hope, but there was so little inspiration to be found here except for some badass action. And Wonder Woman definitely had the best action of the movie. She did not fuck around with those Nazis. She took them down hard and fast, and she looked great doing it.
She was a no-nonsense fighter. She kicked all kinds of ass in this movie.
Yeah, her fight choreography, mwah, really good.
That's chef's kiss.
I loved her character design in the film, too. She's often accused of wearing a swimsuit in the comics, so they kind of ran with that here and put her in an old-fashioned woman's swimsuit, but it still looked armored and iconically her.
Yeah, she wore the shorts instead of the World War II flowing skirt that she had in the comics.
Right.
And she didn't have the briefs. I liked this design. It still felt very classic, strong, and feminine.
Yeah, great character design. Moving on to Jay Garrick, the other Flash. He was voiced by Armin Taylor, who gave a good performance. I'm not familiar with his other work, but he did a good job here.
I liked his voice, yeah.
I don't have too much to say about Jay. He served as a mentor figure of sorts to Barry Allen, which was fitting, though both of them taught each other a few new tricks.
Yeah, Barry Allen taught him spinning hands, and Jay Garrick taught Barry how to phase.
Yeah, how to go intangible and move through objects. That was kind of cool. That was kind of nice.
Although his explanation for how they were both weaker because they were both accessing the Speed Force was a little incorrect. He used the metaphor of photosynthesis for that, saying that the Speed Force was the sun and that they both absorbed the Speed Force like a plant would. But the thing is that one plant's photosynthesis doesn't affect another plant's photosynthesis unless they're right on top of each other.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
That's never been a thing in the comics, right? All kinds of speedsters exist in the DCU that access the Speed Force that don't hinder each other by doing so.
Right, yeah, exactly. This isn't like the Shazam power. That happens to be the case with those characters. They share the same power source, but that's never been the case with the speedsters. As you mentioned, Jay introduces Barry to the concept of the Speed Force in this film, which, as you mentioned, ended up serving as a source of conflict for both Flash characters since both of their powers were diminished. Jay was the resident smart man of the group, though it was a role that he shared with Hourman. Now, I can't figure out why Hourman was in this film. He had very little to do, and it goes against the five-man band trope in storytelling. Are you familiar with that?
No, what is it?
Usually on a team, there are 5 archetypes or roles that make a successful group. You have the leader archetype, who makes the big decisions and on whom the stakes rest. Wonder Woman in this film. Then you have what's known as the Lancer archetype, who is a foil to the leader and one who challenges them and their decisions. Steve Trevor is the Lancer here, as not only is he not superhuman like Wonder Woman or the others, but he challenges her. You also have the smart guy, Jay Garrick, the girl, or the heart of the team, Black Canary.
That's weird. That's a weird archetype.
It's a thing.
The girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the strong guy, an archetype I thought was pretty well filled by Hawkman,
who could literally take down planes and who at least had the interesting reincarnation angle. Hourman, who was voiced by Matthew Mercer, was an extra smart guy and extra strong guy that really wasn't necessary. And I think his inclusion here was only to bolster other Justice Society projects DC currently has going.
Now, what if the group is comprised entirely of females? Who plays the girl archetype?
It's whoever is like the compassionate one. Now, when it comes to like synergy across different DC media types, Hawkman is a little more widespread of a character than Hourman. You know, having appeared in Challenge of the Super Friends, the Legends of Tomorrow series, Smallville, and even the upcoming Black Adam film. Hawkman in this film was voiced by Omid Abtahi, a Persian actor you'd probably recognize if you've seen shows like The Mandalorian or American Gods. He's the first member of the Justice Society to die in this film when he gets Steve Irwined by a stingray trench monster in the final battle.
That's not a great verb.
It was shocking, but it was also great for the stakes, showing that not everyone is coming out of this alive. That said, it also wasn't too concerning considering we know Hawkman reincarnates. His arc tied into the greater theme of this film of love and its power and importance.
I thought Hawkman was really well done in this movie. I liked how badass they made him. I like the actor's voice work. And he seemed really smart, too.
Yeah, he seemed like wise beyond his years, as Hawkman should.
Yeah.
Now, his arc was tied into that of Black Canary, who was voiced by Elysia Rotaru. Black Canary was probably my favorite character of the film. Not only did she kick ass in a way she hasn't yet in the Arrow TV show or the Birds of Prey movie, but she had a fairly relatable arc concerning not only love, but legacy and life after war. She was concerned that she's going to die without being remembered and without knowing true love. It was a very hopeless mindset to be in, but it's Hawkman that teaches her that love is the only thing worth living for.
And dying for.
It's hinted a few times in this film that Black Canary was in love with Hawkman.
Yeah, and then he says another woman's name with his dying breath.
I think that's part of the heartache that she feels toward the end.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's stated in the film's opening that her powers caused her to be shunned by the public and is a criminal. But by the end of the film, she shows that she's done hiding or being ashamed of her abilities when she rips off her mask and avenges Hawkman in the coolest way when she literally blasts the stingray monster to pieces with her canary cry.
I think you could take moments of this movie, particularly the action moments, the action beats that each character gets, and string it together into a really cool montage that I think would appeal to a lot of people. It would be better than the actual movie itself. Seeing Black Canary use her powers in this and fight the Karathan or whatever that beast was so damn cool.
It was amazing.
I like the sound of the canary cry that they used in this too. It was really well done.
And alongside Wonder Woman, I thought the animators gave her a really cool costume design that matched the era, but it wasn't so dated that it didn't look cool.
Yeah, I really liked the blue lipstick kind of, like how it kind of matched her outfit too.
That was
and she
cool.
had kind of like that platinum blonde hair.
Right.
Really solid look. Very different from Wonder Woman, yet still badass.
Moving on to Steve Trevor, he was voiced by Chris Diamantopoulos, and he plays a pretty crucial role in the film. Not only is he the one that brings the team together, but he represents the dedication of true love. Like Wonder Woman, he wants to stop the Nazis and end the war, but he also recognizes that every day may be his last, and he doesn't want to miss an opportunity to express the love he has for Wonder Woman, even amidst the chaos of war. She is literally what he fights for, and because of that, despite not being superhuman, he's motivated to perform some pretty daring feats to save her, like careening a car into Aquaman.
Yeah, I mean, like, wouldn't you if you were Wonder Woman's boyfriend?
Oh, hell yeah. Speaking of Aquaman, he was voiced by Liam McIntyre. I don't quite know how he ended up in this film, considering I don't think he's ever been a member of the Justice Society. I could be wrong. But part of me thinks he was included because the Aquaman movie is currently DC's highest grossing film, and they wanted to recapture the magic of seeing Aquaman ride a giant sea monster into battle.
I was so shocked to see him in this movie because, you know, he wasn't part of any of the marketing either.
Right.
So I was like, what the hell is going on? And then when he and Wonder Woman started fighting, I was like, are they trying to riff on Flashpoint?
Right, yeah, like ever since Flashpoint, it seems like DC is really trying to push this rivalry between the Amazons and the Atlanteans. So apparently this was another opportunity to do that since Wonder Woman was also in the film. I don't like that they put Aquaman in here, and I don't really appreciate that they made him a Nazi. Like, sure, he was under the influence of Psycho Pirate's mind control, but seeing and hearing Aquaman salute Hitler was pretty gross. And I don't think it's good for any superhero's image to do that. Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, but not entirely necessary to get across the point that, yeah, this dude was mind-controlled by Psychopirate, who was working with the Germans.
Exactly. Now, we keep referring to Aquaman's advisor as Psychopirate because Wikipedia does, but I'm not entirely convinced that was supposed to be him because the character cannot be more different. He does refer to himself as a pirate in the film, which is kind of a cool interpretation of Psychopirate, but in the end credits, he's billed as the advisor. I don't know why. He's essentially the main villain of the movie. Underdeveloped villains are the worst, and we don't even know what happens to him in the end. If you can't come up with a name for your villain, what hope is there for the rest of the story is my philosophy.
Yeah, that's true.
Get your shit together, Warner Brothers. You can do better. You can do better. Last but not least, Superman was voiced by Darren Criss, who reprised his role from Superman Man of Tomorrow. I understand why you'd want him in the present-day storyline, to establish connectivity with the prior film and help set up future sequels, but it is a bit harder to figure out why they wanted a different version of the character in the alternate reality the Flash travels into. And we're first introduced to the World War II version of Superman in disguise as a war reporter going by the name Shakespeare, which, what?
It's because they didn't want to call him Clark, because it would have given away the, quote, twist too soon.
I don't know why he wouldn't just be introduced as Clark Kent. It was a pretty lame and unnecessary surprise, I felt, and one that led to an equally unnecessary deus ex machina in the third act when Superman took out all of the Nazi bombers. Like, why would the Nazis send a fleet of bombers if they already sent an army of Atlanteans and sea monsters? I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. The bombers literally only existed in this story to have Superman show up at the end.
But that's enough about the characters. Let's get into the plot breakdown. Now, prior to America's official involvement in World War II, Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman convinced President Franklin D. Roosevelt to establish a covert team of superhumans known as the Justice Society to stop the Nazis and their collection of magical, mystical artifacts.
Great setup, poor execution with the whole mystic Nazi thing.
Exactly. Flash forward to the present, and Barry Allen and Iris have a picnic in Metropolis, where Iris is offended by Barry's lack of dedication to their relationship.
Yeah, this is actually our first introduction to the character of Barry Allen within this new animated universe, and I thought there'd be more setup for him. They kind of just introduced him as a fully fleshed out character.
Yeah, he didn't quite get the attention that, say, Superman got in his film, going through his origin and everything like that.
Yeah, but if we're setting up a new universe, I kind of want to see those origins prior to the formation of the Justice League,
Would have been nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when a battle erupts between Superman and Brainiac, the Flash assists, only to be thrust back in time while speeding to catch a kryptonite bullet.
That kryptonite bullet had so much range. Like, Brainiac was just holding it, and Superman was knocked out of the air from the radiation like a quarter block away. This version of Superman is like hella weak to kryptonite.
Who knows, maybe Brainiac supercharged it or something like that.
I guess, yeah.
Now, the Flash runs into the Justice Society battling Nazis, after which he earns their trust by saving Steve Trevor from crashing his plane.
Again, a lot of great action beats during this particular scene. Some of it very evocative of the World War I fight scene from the Wonder Woman live action film.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I appreciated that. I thought it was really well done here.
It was a great scene from that movie, and yeah, it was nice to just be reminded of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Flash is introduced to a journalist named Shakespeare, then he and the rest of the team are debriefed on their next mission to rescue a code breaker from a Nazi fortress who could help them decipher the Nazis' next plans. The team decides Flash should stay with them for research and insight into the future. At the fortress, Shakespeare is revealed to be an alternate version of Superman, and the Flash realizes this isn't his past, but another reality. The rest of the team finds the codebreaker, who turns out to be Dr. Fate, and he directs them to the Bermuda Triangle before disappearing.
Yeah, this Dr. Fate was near death because the Nazis had been torturing him, and he was barely able to squeeze out this translation before he disappeared, I presume to go heal himself. But I was wondering why, if this whole thing was a trap, if leading the JSA to the Bermuda Triangle was a trap on behalf of the Nazis, why would they nearly kill the guy who was supposed to direct them there? And wouldn't Dr. Fate have known, or at least been able to divine the fact that he was leading these guys into the hands of Psychopirate?
I mean, you could argue that Dr. Fate probably predetermined that the Justice Society characters would escape the trap, and that it would all, work out for them in the end. But who knows? I'm still wondering how the Nazis could even hurt Dr. Fate.
That's a good point, too. Dr. Fate also kind of pushed Superman toward his hero path by giving him his superhero costume.
Yeah, Dr. Fate gave it to another inmate to give to Shakespeare. Dr. Fate was really pulling the strings behind the scenes. I'm not sure why they didn't make him more of a prominent member of the movie, considering Dr. Fate is a really integral character to the Justice Society. He was one of the original members.
Yeah, that would have been great to see. Especially if they stuck with the whole mystic Nazi angle.
You could have had him going up against like Nazi sorcerers. That would have been dope.
Yeah.
What I really hated about this scene was that right when Dr. Fate was about to tell Barry Allen about the League, he was like, no, I'm not going to tell him about the League. And then he disappears.
It was like, dude, you just told him about the League.
And again, it's confusing because wasn't that the whole point of sending Barry Allen back in time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He should have just been like, hey, Barry, form the League when you get back. What I also want to know is when the Flash realized that Shakespeare was Superman, it seemed like he knew that Superman's real name was Clark Kent.
Right.
And that his parents were Jonathan and Martha Kent.
He was like, oh, Clark Kent. Oh, you're Superman.
Yeah. How did he know that? How did he know Superman's secret identity? That was never revealed to the public within the runtime of Superman Man of Tomorrow.
It might have just been that he looked like him, for one. He was bulletproof. He saw the S emblem. There were a bunch of other reasons why he would have figured out that he was Superman.
But now for sure he knows Superman's secret identity in the main timeline.
He's going to be like, hey, Clark. And Superman's going to be like, why did you say that name? As the team arrives at the Bermuda Triangle in a submarine, they are saved by Atlanteans from depth charges released by Nazi warships.
Why? That's what I want to know. Why would Psychopirate have the Atlanteans save the JSA submarine from the depth charges if his goal was to destroy the Justice Society? Like, why would Psychopirate even bring those heroes to the Atlantean outpost to begin with?
Dude, it's easy. It's because the writers were shitty.
There's your answer. I know it was like done for like the purposes of like the big twist that
Right.
Aquaman was evil and everything like that.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, it's a big plot hole that the team was rescued before that reveal, you know?
Yeah. The team meets Aquaman and his advisor, who is maybe Psychopirate and is manipulating Aquaman to follow Nazi orders. Aquaman lures the team into a trap before setting off to unleash sea monsters on New York City. The team manages to escape their trap when Garrick teaches Barry Allen to phase through matter, and the team splits up, one group trying to save New York City from the Atlanteans, and the other trying to stop Aquaman from releasing the monsters. Both teams initially fail, resulting in a massive battle in New York City. As the team fights to protect the city from destruction, Aquaman and Wonder Woman battle each other until Wonder Woman breaks Aquaman's trident, causing an explosion that knocks Aquaman out of his mind control.
Well, how did breaking the trident break Aquaman's possession? Like, there was no connection between Psychopirate and the trident.
I really think it was just the force of the explosion that did it.
But she, like, just got done punching Aquaman in the face, like, really hard multiple times.
Yeah, but the punches aren't magic explosion punches.
Okay.
Yes!
I'm not believing you. I'm just conceding because there's no other answer.
It has to be the only explanation. I don't know what else to tell you. Both Hawkman and Steve Trevor die in the battle. When the advisor reveals that Nazi bombers are arriving, Superman appears and stops them. Wonder Woman gives the Flash Steve's engagement ring to her before he returns to the present timeline of his reality with help from Jay Garrick.
Now, how did Wonder Woman know that the Flash had someone in his life? How does she know to give Barry Allen the ring? In the movie, she says, I'm giving this to you because you said you understood why I said no to Steve Trevor's proposals. But I watched this movie like 3 or 4 times, and the Flash and her never had that discussion. She's referencing a bit of dialogue that was never actually in the movie. It makes me think that there were like a lot of deleted scenes in this film.
I always hate it when something is referred to and like maybe it happened off camera or out of frame or something like that. It's just really bad writing, and I don't understand how that wasn't caught. That should have been caught during the review process.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they think viewers won't catch on to that.
It's like Wonder Woman saying like, oh, hey, Barry, remember that one time we went to IHOP and you snorted milk out your nose? You know, it's just like the viewer would be like, when did that happen?
Exactly. There was an IHOP back then?
But yeah, Flash takes the ring to the present time. Again, we don't know how he figured out how to get to the present time. They just did it. But even before that, you know what I hated? Barry Allen did jack shit during the final battle. Like, he and Wonder Woman came up to the surface and she took on Aquaman, and Barry Allen was like, well, I guess I got the big guy. But then they never show him fight the big guy.
Right.
That was dumb too. Anyway.
It wasn't just dumb. It was like so many elements in this movie, borderline unforgivable.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, Flash defeats Brainiac and suggests to Superman that they form a team of superheroes.
Now, the Flash defeated Brainiac by throwing the Kryptonian bullet through Brainiac's head.
Which was hardcore.
But also fairly easy. Couldn't he have done that with a rock? Like, he threw a rock at the tentacle robots that Brainiac had, and it blew them up. You would think that he could have killed Brainiac at any point just by throwing a rock at him. Why is that Flash throwing rocks all the time like bullets?
Why is he killing people?
That's true. Yeah, Superman just flew away like, well, guess that guy's dead, you know?
Wonder who he was.
Yeah.
Guess we'll never know.
Yep.
In the final scene of the movie, Barry Allen and Iris West are back in the park where Barry finally proposes, and she accepts. Now, when doing these reviews, I often feel conflicted as to whether I should review the film at face value or criticize it if I feel like I came up with better story elements. I do feel like there was a much better film here based on its premise, and the squandered potential of this film is super confusing as both a fan and critic. At the end of the day, all I know is that I didn't like this film personally, and I wouldn't recommend it. I'm sure, like Superman Man of Tomorrow, there are many out there who will like this film, but for me, the story simply raised too many questions that made too many baffling choices that resulted in me giving this film 2 stars.
Yeah, I would agree with 2 stars. I mean, if you're just looking for a film that has cool animation and great action, I think you'll enjoy this film more. But you're only going to get enjoyment out of that in spurts from this movie, because the action beats are far and few between this weird, boring story. It's not good.
I still think there's potential in this universe, though, and I can't wait to see what they do for the next film in this continuity, which is going to be the 2-part film, Batman: The Long Halloween, which we'll be reviewing later this year.
I'm actually scared for that movie now, considering that Man of Tomorrow wasn't great and this movie wasn't great.
The Long Halloween is one of the most revered Batman stories, and the filmmakers have been saying that this film adaptation will be the most faithful adaptation of any DC Comics storyline that they've ever done.
It has to be. It better be.
Because of that, I'm not worried, and I'm actually really excited for people to experience that story, perhaps for the first time. I almost guarantee it's going to be better than Justice Society World War II. You only go up from here. But that does it for this review. Let us know what you thought about the movie by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you can also find a link to our Patreon page, as well as images of the new pins that we're giving out to our $10 and $18 tier members. Remember, guys, our lowest Patreon tier is only $2 a month, so sign up, join us on Discord, and get more from the show, and keep it free.
As a tie-in to this review, in next week's episode, we will be doing a duel between the JSA member Wildcat and Batroc the Leaper, who is featured in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier television series.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one because Wildcat is like the premier boxer in all of DC Comics, and Batroc is like the premier, like, kicker in all of Marvel Comics. He's like known for his fighting style using his legs.
It's fists versus feats. We're going to find out who wins. I'm looking forward to it too. But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, Zachary Hepburn, and John Bechinina for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away.
True believers.